Okay, it's been a lovely 4 hours. So, as you're aware, if you watch my other videos, I rebuilt my front end. Transmission was rebuilt for about $2,600 about a year ago, and it started leaking after a couple months after it was rebuilt. And we replaced the output shaft seal on one side, leaked the other side, started leaking, replaced the output shaft on that side, and then the transmission bearings went out. So it had a Pelican limited slip and was completely rebuilt. So took it back to the shop, said, look, I haven't touched it since you worked on a transmission, do me a favor and fix this thing. And of course, all the excuses came in. I must have done something like change the drive shafts, and I knew better than to change anything, so I didn't. Long story short, I haven't done anything with these motor mounts for 80,000 miles, and the transmission's been pulled out and reinstalled twice. It got rebuilt one time, and then it got rebuilt under warranty a second time. And I kept hearing a little bit of it sounded like a loose drive shaft. When your bolts in your drive shaft would come loose, you can hear them clips that go between the two bolts on the drive shaft rattle, and I'd hear it every now and then, just vaguely. That's why I rebuilt the front end. I figured something's not right. And the last thing I should have started with the engine mounts, right? Last engine mount I get to, or the transmission mount upper, the bolt's loose, right? This bolt was loose and just flopping around loose. So what had happened, I would presume, that they weren't torqued to the 76 pounds that they were supposed to be torqued, or the stretch bolts weren't clean when they were reinstalled and the holes weren't blown out. Who knows? But long story short, since I put the last set of engine mounts in here before the transmission work was done, I know they were installed correctly by me. So what do you do, other than get frustrated with paying people exorbitant amounts of money to work on your car and they don't do a good job? So needless to say, I had to go down and get a Heli coil. So you look at this, what had happened, let me try and explain. The bolts had stripped out the engine mount or transmission mount bracket, right? There's threads in that transmission mount bracket, and the bolts, obviously, this side had been stripped out and this side was starting to. So what I did, went down and spent, these Heli coil kits are expensive. This is like $80. I about had a heart attack when they rang me up, but I needed them. I got to get tires tomorrow, and it's Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. Now it's 10:30. So anyway, drilled. I didn't drill anything out on these outer studs. I just cleaned them out really well, run the thread cleaner through, added the Heli coil, and then to strengthen this up, I drilled. There is a hole here in the engine or transmission mount where you could get a bolt through. Now there's not much meat, so I had to drill that out, and then I put a Heli coil in there, and that's torqued to 40 pounds. But let me show you. I'll try and explain, if you want to do this, to add a little strength to this mount, what drill bit I had to use. So you're going to use a 15/32 drill bit. And what you're going to do is drill that out if you want to add another bolt to the system. It ain't going to give you very much, but it's better than nothing. It'll make up for the Heli coils, in my opinion. And I know Heli coils are supposed to be stronger and all that, but I doubt it. I'd like to see that in the real world, but I've never had a Heli coil, in my opinion, outdo the original threads. Okay, so now I had to add a spacer because I had this bolt, which was an M12 1.25 pitch. So these bolts you're dealing with are M12 1.5 pitch, and I happen to have an extra bolt, but ironically enough, it was another engine mount bolt that I had laying around, but I needed to space it. So the weird thing is that spacer actually came from me working on the rear shocks, right? Because it's weird how things fall into place. I had to go to Les Schwab. I wanted to get metal bushings in the lower part of my shocks because I've modified my rear end with what did I use? What in the world is that? You hear that? It gets a little creepy out here at night sometimes, I tell you, man. I got a mountain lion running around. That wasn't a mountain lion, but that would sound like a little varmint, but that kind of freaks me out. Well, I'm not going to edit this out, so let's go back. Too much Halloween. Where was I? So anyway, that's I didn't want rubber bushings in the lower part of my air shocks that I've installed in this car. They're out of a modification out of a oh, what are they, Escalade or something like that, 2000 Cadillac. You can look it up online. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So anyway, that's how I wound up with this spacer, or this metal bushing, or aluminum aluminum bushing, because I use metal in mine. That's another story. I'll get into my rear end someday and explain how I modified my rear end. I added air shocks to the system, beefed up the rear end. I did a video on that, kind of vaguely went over what I did to strengthen the rear end. But this is about the transmission mount. So it all ties together, working on the car. So this bolt was a little long, and I wanted to add this bushing in here to get my height up. There's not much meat in here, so I'm probably grabbing half the threads on this bolt as I would on these. So I only torqued this to like 40 pounds. These are torqued to 76, so hopefully this holds. If it doesn't, these brackets, these transmission brackets on for the O2J and the 5-speed manuals are about $190 from the dealership if I can't find one in the boneyard that's in good shape. So I just want to give somebody or everybody a heads up if there was somebody out there that needed to deal with what I'm dealing with. So go down if you have this issue and you can't, you don't want to buy a new part, you want to repair yours. Go ahead and get a Heli coil thread repair kit, M12 by 1.5 thread pitch. Use the aforementioned drill bit if you want to go ahead and drill out. Now I drilled down about, without the bracket, without the mount, transmission mount in the way, I drilled about 2 inches down, and this is hollow on the back side, so you're going to hit meat on the top, drilling through it, and meet again. And there's a hollow cavity up underneath here in the bracket. So you'll see if you're going to do that. And then you thread it. Use your tap. I highly recommend using thread cutting oil when you're cutting your threads, so make life a lot easier. And, well, there you have it. So hopefully this might give somebody some assistance in dealing with the same issue. But there you go. There you have it. I'm going to get out of here and get this put back together and relax. All right. Have a good night.